some fun. Vibrate. I always begin by setting my timer, so I just kind of know where we're at. Okay. A number of months ago, I was invited to an event that involved a fashion show at a company called Sweet Jolie. I wasn't sure what it was all about. I knew it was a clothing store, and that's about it. All you have to say is shopping to me, and generally you have my attention. Yes, it is one of my weaknesses. But this invitation was about so much more than shopping. As I was soon to discover, it was about life and community and philanthropy, about collaboration instead of competition. It involved customers that were friends. It was about shining the light on a condition known as alopecia and removing any stigma that may be attached to it. When I arrived, it didn't take long for me to discover that this boutique-y type store is loaded with character and substance. It has something called the Hub, and it's a place where customers can entertain their children, connect, and chat all while they shop. But it was the fashion show that followed that really touched my heart. And I'm going to pause there because this is not my story to tell. This story belongs to the woman who came up with this fabulous concept and store, a woman who has turned a retail business into a body positive movement and helps those less fortunate along the way. I'm so thrilled to welcome the founder, Nicole Rice, to the inner circle today. Took a few months, but we made it happen.
I'm so glad.
My gosh, I'm never going to forget that night because for me it was so unexpected, but that is at the root of what you are. Mm-hmm. Events like those are commonplace for you, correct?
Yes, we host a few of those every year, and they're incredible. They're so good.
Okay, Nicole, I want you to take me back to where this whole concept began in your life. How did it come to fruition, and what were you doing in life at that time?
About 10 years ago, I had my first daughter. Her name is Amy, and after I had her, I suffered from really bad postpartum depression. So I was able to work through it with the village that I have around me and my family and my husband, who's incredible. About 5 months after I had her, I got pregnant again and had Kate. So I remember having her in the hospital room and having her laying on my legs, and she was my black-haired baby. My husband has blonde hair, and I dreamed of having a black-haired baby, and she was on my legs, and I looked at her, and I made a conscious decision that I was going to be kind to myself and speak kindly to myself for the sake of my daughters. I had 2 daughters to raise, and I needed to speak with affirmation, like constant affirmation over myself and kindness to them as well.
I'm going to pause you there for a specific reason because you kind of threw out postpartum depression and moved on from that. But we need to shine a light on this because although we all know what it is, and I suffered from it a bit when I had my first baby, I want you to describe what you went through, what postpartum depression did to you in your mind, in your heart, how you felt for those people who don't understand the kind of impact it can have on your day-to-day.
It's debilitating, actually. I feel like 10 years ago, we actually didn't talk about it as much as we even talk about it now. And it was something that you didn't discuss. I had a beautiful baby girl. She was born premature at 4 pounds, and she was in NICU. I was in ICU. I wasn't able to see her for the first 48 hours of her life, and I had people constantly coming in my room showing me pictures of them holding my baby, and it was the worst feeling ever. I had everybody and their boyfriends and girlfriends holding my baby before I could, and when I finally got to hold her, it was like the biggest release of emotions I've ever had. I sobbed and sobbed and sobbed, and then they took her away from me, and I couldn't hold her again. And because I didn't have that initial contact with her, and I was on so much medication because I was so sick, I wasn't able to breastfeed, and I just felt like that was something I should have naturally been able to do. I didn't bond initially with her the way I should have, and it was just a culmination of so many things that when I got home, I didn't even know how to be a mom. Like, I didn't know how to feed her at night. I didn't have to for the first 10 days of her life. Somebody else did. And so it was just this really weird culmination of everything coming together. And then my husband going back to work, and I didn't know what to do with her. And I would just sit in our bedroom with the lights off and her in bed beside me and do nothing all day. And not even know I felt like I couldn't be a mom. Like I had no idea how to even behave with her. And I remember my husband came home one day from work and came to just visit us, and he didn't know that I was laying in bed all day. And he came in and kind of walked around the house and kind of found me in our bedroom with her in our bed with the lights off. And he was like, we can't do this. And kind of just like stayed home with me for a bit and helped me get out of bed and opened the blinds, and it helped me. That's what helped me.
And you know, the biggest, how can I put this? The most difficult thing to deal with in postpartum is the guilt we put on ourselves.
Absolutely.
Because you're thinking, how come I don't know how to be a mom? This is my baby.
Totally.
And we put guilt on, and then we don't want to talk about it. Mm-hmm. Thank goodness your husband came and said, let's do this basically together, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So was that the game changer?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then when I had Kate, I knew that I did not have postpartum depression because I knew what it looked like. So I just decided that I was going to be kinder to myself and give myself grace in the recovery process. I had 3 C-sections back to back, and
wow,
I needed to recover from them and give myself grace to recover.
Was that hard to do?
It was, but again, my husband is so motivating, and he was beside me the whole time and helped me stand up, like literally stand up on my feet within a few hours of having my C-section. And it really helped the process of me being able to heal a lot faster.
And let's not mince words. Like, I didn't have C-sections, but I know women who have.
Yeah.
That is a major operation. I mean, you are cut. All your muscles in your stomach are cut. That's difficult to stand up without that strength.
Oh yeah, it was very difficult.
So
especially so close back to back.
3 in a row, because you were probably just getting healed from baby number 1.
Yeah, which is why I needed to keep having C-sections, because my insides were not healed properly yet.
Yes. Okay, so Kate arrives.
Yeah. So
jet black hair.
Yeah, my black-haired baby. She was the only one who had black hair. And I just decided that I was going to use this time to be kinder to myself and to be a better mom who felt fulfilled for them. So she was born in January, and her middle name is Jolie. And she's the sweetest thing. She's the sweetest kid. And 6 months after I had her, I decided to start Sweet Jolie because I needed to do something that was more than being a mom. It wasn't enough for me. I didn't feel fulfilled. I needed to do something else that was just for me. So I started Sweet Jolie with just jewelry. And I started a Facebook page, and that's how it began.
Were you making the jewelry?
I was, yeah. I was curating different findings. I literally started Sweet Jolie with $25 and an ice cream pail, which I still have.
No.
Yeah. And
what, like with beads in it or stones?
A 4-liter white ice cream pail. And I went to Michael's and bought a whole bunch of stones and beads, and I taught myself how to make jewelry, and that's how I started the company.
How did that feel doing that?
It was good. It was the only thing that I felt at the time, like my perception was my reality, that was the only thing I was doing for myself. So it was good. And it started out slow, and basically it was my mom and my friends buying my jewelry. And it kind of just kept growing through Facebook, and I didn't have a website or anything. I would post pictures on Facebook, and people would comment with their PayPal address or comment and say, I'll see you in a few days. I'll buy this one. And that's how I started the company.
How did that feel? It's validation.
Yeah.
When people want to buy your stuff. And I really want to recognize the vulnerability that you showed telling this part of the story, and to say that, you know, sometimes there's so much judgment for women that say, you know, I was a mom, I love my kids, but I needed more.
Yeah.
I needed to use my brain or my skills that I know are inside of me. And that's good that you recognize that and you held space for yourself. That's probably part of your healing.
It was a difficult decision to make, and it was something that was really hard to admit too, because my mom was made to be a stay-at-home mom. She loved it. She was the best stay-at-home mom. So I just assumed that would be my life, and it wasn't. I that was not what I was made for. So I love my children, obviously, but I was not made to stay at home with them 24/7.
Well, you found something that you love doing, and people are responding with PayPal addresses, which is so great. Where'd you take it from there?
From there, the jewelry started taking off a lot. But in the meantime, I had had my 3rd child. And
your 3rd child arrived when?
He arrived 16 months after Kate.
Oh my gosh, Nicole. So you would have had then 3 under the age of 3? Or?
I had 3 in 2.5 years.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Okay. That's huge.
It was crazy. And it was just a really crazy period. I had Amy, I had Kate, and then at 6 weeks, I had a blessing of getting pregnant again, but we did not expect it because it was 6 weeks after I had Kate. And I ended up losing that baby because my body was just not ready.
Wow.
And then 2 months later, I got pregnant with Henry. So it was just like such a whirlwind of everything. So I had Henry, and at the same time we had built our house and we were moving into it, and we had a finished basement, and I knew that I couldn't do 100% something for myself because I had a newborn, and childcare is so unaffordable for 3 children. So we had to figure out something that would work for our family. So I started a day home at home. So I took in 6 other children plus my 3. So I had 9 kids at home. I had before and after school care kids. And that's what helped pay our mortgage while I was continuing to grow the business.
Okay, I can't even pause. How are you looking after 3 kids plus how many others you said?
An extra 6 all day.
9 children, and you're still growing the business and looking after them?
Yeah, during nap times, I was responding and doing PayPal invoices and packing orders. And then when the kids all left, I would respond to messages on Facebook because I didn't have an email address or anything yet. And as the company continued to grow, we would open it up for like 2 or 3 hours a night or on a Saturday for 4 hours so that people could come shop in the store, which was my house. It was our basement.
So did you start to expand then outside of your jewelry? Because how could you be making jewelry as well?
I was doing jewelry during nap time. And then as it started to grow, I would start bringing in purses, scarves, things that were one size that women would always fit into. I wanted to, from the beginning, I wanted the company to be as inclusive as possible, and jewelry always fits, and so does a scarf. So that's where I started, with just one size items that would fit anybody.
So I was going to ask you, but you explained the one size and why that was so important. Okay, I need to ask this, through it all and the busyness, were you happy?
Yeah, I was happy. I thrive on being busy. I know that some people think that we shouldn't be proud of being busy, but I actually love it. And I do better when I'm busy. So I did love it. Doing a day home is not my calling to the core of who I am, but it was a means to an end. And I did it well. And the kids loved it, and my kids loved it. So,
well, they had play dates every single day.
Totally. That was their family. That's all they knew. So,
okay. So how long did you continue on like this?
I did day home for about 3 years, and then at a certain point, and during that time, I had hired 1 or 2 staff members who came in kind of part-time as needed.
People you knew?
Yeah. People who I had met through the business.
Okay.
And after about 3 years, we had grown so much that I looked at my husband and I said, I think I can do this full time. And he was 100% supportive right from the get-go. Yes, stop the day home. We're doing this full time. But it felt so scary and so selfish because day home was guaranteed income, and this was not. And I knew that at the end of the day, if this didn't work out, I could go back to doing day home, but I didn't want to. Or I could go back to my interior design roots, which I went to school for, but I also didn't want to do that. Like, I really wanted Sweet Jolie to keep growing.
So you are an interior designer by trade,
Yes.
right? Did you work in the industry before you started having kids then?
I did.
So that creative bug is right inside of you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So pick it up. I had to point that out because you had those years of designing before you ventured down this road.
Yeah.
I also love what you said, and I'm going to honor it when you said you felt so selfish. So many entrepreneurs go through that.
Yeah.
Because it's risky.
It's
Do
super risky.
Do you work for someone and get that guaranteed paycheck, or do you follow the passion inside? And your answer to that was?
Yeah, I had to follow it. I just felt like there was so much space that Sweet Jolie could take up, and I had to do it full time or I would never be able to do it justice. So I decided to stop doing the day home, which was so scary, and then just do Sweet Jolie full time. And at that time we had grown so much that I could not rely on just purses and scarves and hats and things that were one size. So I started bringing in sized clothing. So we just grew it from there, and my basement, my entire basement, which was the day home, turned into my store. So it was in a really small, like 250 square foot room. We outgrew that. We took over like a 300 square foot room, outgrew that. And then eventually we took over the entire basement, which was like a huge milestone for my business at the time, that I would have enough need for like 1,000 square feet. So,
wow. Okay, so tell me, can you say in like how busy you were, or dollars and cents, or how you knew that it just kept growing and growing? Were people just reaching out everywhere?
Yeah, like we were starting to ship out, and I was starting to open up 1 or 2 times a week for 4 hours, and then there was more of a need for it, and then people wanted to come one-on-one, and and to the point where my side door was always unlocked and people just came shopping, and it was kind of crazy. Like, if I think about it now, I don't think I would ever go shop in somebody's house, but people did it, and it was really crazy. So I remember saying to my husband at one point, if I can make $1,000 a week, then I can pay for the mortgage. I can contribute towards the mortgage, and then I will feel like I did my part. And that was always my goal, $1,000 a week. And then I remember hitting another milestone and thinking, like, this is crazy. I can't believe we've hit this number now. And then we started hosting open houses at the house, where my entire top floor of the house, we would kind of move furniture around, and we would lay out the jewelry, and we would have like scarves and hats kind of rolled up on a table. And at one point, we have a video of this where we had at least 200 people lined up down my street around the corner. And the neighbors never called us in, and they could have, but it's the reason they didn't is because of my husband. He's amazing, and he's so social, and he visits them and like sweeps their driveways and shovels for them, and they just love him. So they never called me in for anything, and they could have. And
that gratitude was reciprocated in a different way, right? Them supporting you. But how did you feel looking outside and seeing all these people lined up, or probably you're so busy, but hearing that they were lined up?
It was scary, actually. I remember standing in my kitchen and watching people. I have a video where they like flood in, like water gates opening, and hundreds of people. And my husband was out with the kids to keep them busy, and then he went down into the basement to feed them McDonald's while we were doing the open house. And when everybody left and we locked up the doors, I said to him, this is the craziest thing. You won't believe how many people were in here. And he had set up a GoPro over our oven. And he's like, yeah, right, kind of thing. And he turned it on, and he was like, oh my goodness, this is insane. We can never do this at the house again. He says, did you feel the rafters creaking? And I'm like, no, I couldn't hear anything. There was hundreds of people.
Hundreds. Do you have any idea the account that came through?
I bet you there was 350 people who came through within the span of like 4 hours.
Okay, so it was lucrative for you. 4 hours.
Yeah.
Paid off in spades?
Yes, it was busy, and we made money. It was crazy. So after that one, we started renting out hotel spaces, and we would pack up every rack, every piece of clothing. It was exhausting, and we would pack everything up in multiple vehicles, drive to a hotel, unpack, set up, and we would be set up there for 2 days kind of thing, and then do the open house there instead.
How many people were working with you?
Probably at that time I had maybe 4 or 5 people.
Part-time?
All part-time.
So obviously you were making enough that you could pay them and pay your mortgage.
Yeah.
Did you pause at all through all of this and think, what's happening? Like, I'm doing it.
Yeah, it was the craziest thing. I couldn't understand why it was working. Like, I didn't understand why people cared. That's what I kept saying. Like, what happens if they stop caring about this? But they didn't. And then this community grew, and it's like, it is overwhelming. There are some days where I go in and I just can't believe the overwhelming feeling that I get with the community that has grown behind us. They're amazing.
Obviously, it must be one of your core values, but back then you kept saying you couldn't understand why people were supporting you. When you look back now, why do you think it is?
I think it's because I was a face to the business. It wasn't just a business that popped up on Facebook. I think it's because I was always in the pictures. I was the person talking to them. So they felt like they became friends with me. And for someone who's a total introvert, I was easily able to engage with people online because it wasn't as scary.
You're an introvert?
Yes.
Stop.
Yes.
One of these things is not like the other, Nicole.
Yeah, like I am an absolute introvert at heart, but talking to people online seemed easy for me. It was safer. So,
but then when you were faced with them in person, it's almost like you blossomed in that space.
It's a work in progress still.
Okay.
It's a work in progress.
Thanks for the honesty there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think it's because people felt like they could relate to me, and we were becoming friends, and they were talking to me on a daily basis. There's people who started shopping with me from day one that we're still friends with, and we still talk to. So
let me ask you this. Were you sharing your story with them?
Not initially. I think that the fact that I had children and I was a mom, that was starting to come out.
Yeah.
But I wasn't really sharing my story yet.
Okay. Okay. So you're in the hotel spaces, doing well. When did you finally make the move into a standalone store, or was that still down the road?
It was still down the road. Like 1 or 2 years, I feel, down the road. There was at one point where I can pinpoint the exact moment where I saw one of my girls who still works for me. She was in one of our spare rooms downstairs, and she was climbing onto a box to get to a box behind another one. And I remember looking at her and thinking, we can't do this anymore. This is unsafe. We have no space for inventory. I had UPS delivering massive boxes daily. Like, my side entrance was packed with boxes all the time. And I remember thinking, we need to get another space, but I don't know how this is going to work, because none of the banks would take me seriously at the time. I was a mom who worked from home. I wasn't really doing metrics or anything on my numbers at the time, because it was kind of a stay-at-home business. And then once we started taking off and I could show full growth and we had really, really strong numbers, still then they were saying, you know, it wasn't 3 years of growth and it wasn't in a space, and we weren't really testing the model outside of the home. And
why didn't that stop you? And you kept hearing this over and over.
Because I really felt like this was where I was being called. And
that's huge.
Yeah, it was just it was placed on my heart that we needed another space. And so at the time, ATB was the one who helped me out with doing a booster campaign, which is like a GoFundMe.
Yes.
So we created this entire campaign, and I knew that I needed $40,000 to be able to move into the space. So I spoke with the person at ATB, and they told me that I should not make my campaign $40,000, because if you don't make your full amount, you don't get any of it.
Okay.
So they suggested doing a $30,000 campaign, but I knew I needed the 40. So we did the 30 and we pushed, and that was a full-time job, and we did it for 45 days. And in the 45 days, we raised, I think, $45,000.
Oh, wow.
Which was crazy. We were the second highest ever campaign. And that's what allowed us to get into our space. But before I knew if we were going to be successful, I just felt like we were.
How were you able to raise that money? What was the game changer for you? Community?
Just our community.
Yeah.
They wanted to be a part of it. We had rewards for different levels of contributions,
right,
and people showed up for it, which was crazy. And while we were running the campaign, not knowing if it was going to be successful at the time, we started looking for a space. And I looked at a couple spaces through the window, and then I walked through the space that we were in, and I knew that was my space.
You felt it.
Absolutely. So I phoned the landlord and I said, I need this space. It's mine. And she said, we already signed it to somebody else. And
okay.
I pulled over on the side of the road and I phoned my husband, and I was bawling. And I was like, somebody got my space. They gave it to somebody this morning, but I know it's mine. And he's like, well, didn't phone them back and tell them it has to be yours. And I was like, but they just signed the contract. And he's like, did they sign the contract, or did they tell somebody they were going to give it to them? And I'm like, I don't know. So I pulled over, I phoned them, and I was pacing around my vehicle in a circle for an hour and a half. And I was like, you guys have to give me this space. This is why. This is what we're going to bring to your building. This, like, I know I can do this kind of thing. So an hour and a half goes by, and they said, come in and talk to us. So I drive to my husband's work. I pick him up. I've got my 3 kids with me. We get them McDonald's. We go into this empty building. And I said, you need to give me this space. I know that it is supposed to be mine. And she says, we haven't signed the contract with the other people.
There it is.
But we're supposed to sign with them tomorrow at 9 in the morning. Let me sleep on this. And if I'm going to give it to you, I'm going to phone you at 8 in the morning. So I did not sleep all night. I put my phone on full blast ringer.
Of course
and
you
at
did.
8:01, they phoned and they said, we feel like it is your space. So they said, but you need to bring us this down payment. I wasn't successful in my campaign yet. So I didn't really have the money for the full down payment. It was quite a bit for where I was at the time. So we emptied all of our savings, all of them. We emptied my husband's savings, my savings, anything we had. And we had enough plus like $10 for this down payment. And I drove, and I remember hearing God say to me, I'm with you. I've got this. And I went and I gave them my check. And that was it. And we had nothing left in our bank.
Are you religious that way? Do you believe? So you do you practice the manifestation, or did you pray? Or?
I prayed about it constantly. Yeah, I prayed about it constantly. And it was like one of the only times that I can remember hearing, like when people say, I heard
Yes.
God spoke to me. I don't hear it like that. And that was the only time where I remember looking down at my foot while I was driving, and I heard him say, I'm with you. I've got this.
So did you have any nerves handing that check over, or you were 100% certain this is exactly what I need to be doing? Oh, that's good. How did that feel to do that?
It was super scary. I knew it was the right thing, but it was still terrifying because we didn't have any of the funds coming in yet. We didn't know if we were going to be successful. and we had spent all of our savings to get in.
Okay.
So I didn't have enough to even fill a third of the store, let alone the massive warehouse in the background.
Yes.
And anytime I would bring friends or family to see the empty space, every single time they would say, "This is massive." And I would say, like, "No, don't say that. It's fine. We'll fill it." Yeah.
And you did. Mm-hmm. Where did it start?
We started I do a lot of antiquing. So we started buying pieces and filling up the space. And it was very empty when we first started. And we had to fill it up so much so that we hardly had any inventory, but people still came. Mm-hmm.
So at that point, when you opened, did you have regular hours?
Yes, we had regular hours. We were open. I feel like maybe it was only like 10 to 4 Monday through Friday. We opened on Saturday. We never open on Sunday. We still don't. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we were doing regular hours, and it wasn't a huge amount of staff. Maybe we had 4 people.
Okay. And what were numbers like? Were you seeing the same sort of support and growth that you saw in your basement and in the hotel spaces?
Yeah, it was starting to grow, and we were starting to build these campaigns, and we were starting to do our love project where we were giving back, and it just kept growing.
Okay, you mentioned the love project. Let's go there. What is that all about?
So it's kind of the core of what Sweet Jolie stands for. We are all about giving back to nonprofits that affect women and children in our community. I have felt from day one that if I was going to be given this platform and it was going to continue to grow, that I was going to use it for good. And I could not just do the boutique. It had to have a purpose. And the purpose is the give backs that we do. So those have grown over the years too. And we've kind of played around with it where one year we did a different one every month, which was a lot. And now we really have these massive focuses on 2 a year plus a couple peppered in, but otherwise we do our 2 major ones every year now.
What do you hear from your community when you do these? Is that why they support you?
I think so. I think that they just love being a part of it. Our Love Yourself campaign that happens in February is one of our furthest reaching campaigns. It touches so many people. We hear about it year round. So once the campaign is done, nobody moves past it. We just keep talking about it all year, and it's grown so much.
Tell us about what it is and what makes it so special and why it's connecting with so many people.
The Love Yourself campaign is at the core about speaking words of affirmation over yourself and showing yourself love. And because it's over the month where Valentine's Day is, it's not looking for love from someone else, it's showing it to yourself. So the premise of the campaign, we have these pink bracelets that you put on one arm, and you speak words of affirmation over yourself. And every time you talk down to yourself, you switch it arms. And the goal is to go 21 days without switching it, because it takes 21 days to create a good habit or a bad habit.
Yes.
So, and I do it with my customers, and I'm brutally honest about it. There are some days where I change it 15, 20 times. And there are some days where I can go 3 days and then I have to revert back. And by the end of the month, the goal is to try and get at least 15 days, then we can get into March with it. So
that is genius. That's very Brene Brown. Is that where the concept came from? Because she has talked so much about self-love and why it's so important. Because the bottom line, you can't love other people until you love yourself.
Absolutely. It was something that we had brainstormed as a team. Like, how could we make this something visual? It's fine to tell someone to speak kindly to themselves, but when they have a visual reminder, it's a game changer.
It absolutely is. And so for them, were you seeing and hearing the changes? Tell me about some things.
Yeah, we had women from all over telling us that, because we send them for free. They go in every single package. Some people end up getting 20 of them if they order all the time, but they go in every package in store and online. There's no charge. If somebody wants 20 of them for their women's group, we send them out. We want this to get as far reaching as possible. There's no limit to how many people can have or gift.
I need one, by the way.
Yes, I will bring you a bunch for you and your team.
Okay, perfect.
But yeah, we have women telling us that they just had a baby and they don't even recognize themselves anymore, and this is their one thing that they can use to help speak words of affirmation over themselves. My daughter wears them, both my daughters wear them year round on their ankles. So it is a movement, and we're trying to teach young girls to love themselves at a young age so that we don't have to continue doing these movements for adults.
Right. Because it starts there, and we've got to stop the negative self-talk at a young age and recognize what it is and call it what it is.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant campaign. I'm going to pause you there and get you to take us back to your family. In the meantime, you're growing leaps and bounds. You've got campaigns. How are you being mom as well? And where are your kids at in this whole story?
They're in school full time. my husband also owns his own business. So while mine was growing, his was kind of staying at the same spot. He had declined a little bit in his sales, and he was able to do pickup and drop off and stay at home and cook all the meals and do the laundry because he's amazing. And now he's starting to pick up a little bit too. So we have found some people to help us with childcare.
It sounds like you have a beautiful marriage, and thank you. But is he okay with that? Because sometimes still, as much as we want to think as society, we've progressed so much and men can stay home, there's still at some times there's stigma attached to that. And also, did it impact his self-confidence at all?
Absolutely. I'm sure it did right at the beginning. And I know that he struggled with it at the beginning. But that being said, there are a lot of dads at my kids' schools who are the stay-at-home parent. And I think the more we talk about it and the more they talk about it amongst themselves, the more commonplace it's become. So he's 100% okay with it now, but it was a growth thing for him because typically it was the man who would work and the woman who would stay at home. And I feel like there's been such a huge shift with that.
Has it made your marriage stronger?
Oh, totally.
In what ways?
Just because I've become stronger in who I am. And I know what my place is, and he knows his, and he's my biggest supporter, and he's at the store with me all the time doing like maintenance stuff, and he's my biggest cheerleader. And yeah, absolutely. And I think it's super important for our kids to see that too, that the dynamic can change and it'll shift again at some point, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, as long as we're a team, that's all that matters.
Okay, let's bring Sweet Kate into this conversation because she developed a condition that had a huge impact on your life and your family. So tell us about it.
So when she was 2 years old, she always had black hair. She was my black-haired baby. She went a little bit lighter after, but she never had great hair. She always had a bit of patchiness. It was just kind of scraggly. And I remember when she was 2 years old, I walked up behind her in her bedroom, and there was a huge patch of hair beside her on the floor. And I thought, oh, that's so weird. Like she's a little bit of an anxious child. So I thought maybe she pulled her hair out. That's so weird. I'm not going to make a big deal about it. I took it, threw it out, moved on. The next morning we went to go get her out of bed, and there was hair all over her pillow. And I thought, what the heck is happening? I've never seen this before. So we brought her to the doctor, and immediately he just said, yeah, it's alopecia.
So for those people who are not familiar with alopecia, tell us the condition and what it does.
It's an autoimmune disorder. There's no cause for it. There's no cure for it. And it's basically your body attacks your hair follicles. So it can be in different, it can have different gravities. Some people have a patch that they can cover. Some people, it could be on their beard. Men and women equally can get it. Kate has alopecia totalis, so she has no hair from head to toe. And it developed very quickly. Like from the time I saw that patch beside her on the floor to the time she lost all of her hair might have been 3 months.
And she was how old at the time? 2 years old. So I'm going to start here. How did you process that?
I was devastated. I know a lot of people will say, well, it's just hair. It could be worse. Well, yes, it can always be worse, I'm sure. But she's a girl that's now going to grow up. She could get her hair back. We have no idea. But
so it can reverse?
Yeah,
or
it can with no
explanation?
No indication that's going to come back. She could grow it back at 12, lose it at 13 for the rest of her life. She could grow it back, never lose it. Like there's no rhyme or reason to it. But it wasn't just hair. Like there's a reason her body is rejecting it. It's autoimmune. So because people just associate with just being something cosmetic, there's not very much research that goes into it. So we were finding that we couldn't get any answers. There was no cure. The only thing that you can get done at times is a very painful steroid injection. But I wasn't going to do that, nor could I. She's a baby, and they don't want you to do that before they hit puberty anyways. So we had never met anybody who had had it as a child. We didn't know anybody in our community who had it, and I just felt like I had to do something so that when she was older, she could say, my mom did everything she could to try and figure this out for me.
What did you do?
I started researching it. I started trying to meet other people in the community. I tried reaching out to the Alopecia Foundation. And then I just thought, there's got to be a month for this. Like there's months for everything. So I researched it, and it's September, and I thought, okay, let's do a campaign. Let's try and raise some awareness for this to see if people will even care, like if it's something that is affecting people that no one's talking about. So this was our 5th year. So 5 years ago, we did a campaign where a portion of the proceeds, for the month of September would go back to the Alopecia Foundation. And it was good. It was like somewhat received. I think that we raised maybe $300 for the foundation, not much. But then I just decided, like, I can't give it one chance. I have to keep growing this to see where it will go to. And fast forward to now, we're one of the biggest contributors to the Alopecia Foundation. Wow. We have a community of like 50 to 100 women who constantly come into the store, who show up for this campaign, who see each other in themselves, like see themselves in each other. And it has been life-changing for Kate. She is now almost 9 years old, and in the last 5 years she has seen children exactly her age who look just like her up to 65, 70 years old, boys, girls, men, women who look like her. And it's completely changed how she feels about herself.
Was she, I mean, when you're 2 years old and something happens like that, it can quickly become your normal, but not when you have brothers and sisters, though, that have this full head of hair.
Yeah.
How did you help her cope?
We actually didn't have to help her cope initially. We just told her that that's how she was made. Her sister has a ton of freckles. She has no hair. That's how God made her. She's special. We're all built for a certain purpose in life, and hers would be revealed to her one day, kind of thing. And so we didn't really have to explain it for quite a while until she became self-aware. And I think that only happened really when she was like 7 and a half. And then she started really questioning it. So
what would she question? Would she ask if she's ever going to get hair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, why does she not have any? Why is she the only kid in her school who doesn't have any? And so we decided that we were going to use it as a learning and a teaching moment. And we went into her school. My dad and I went in, and we spoke to every single grade individually at their level, because kindergarten kids ask very different questions than a grade 6 child will. And we just made it normal. This is Kate. It's not contagious. You're not going to catch this. She's not sick. And we just spoke to every single grade level, and we handed out brochures to the parents, and it's not even a thing at her school anymore. And like, we know that as she continues to grow and change schools and that kind of a thing, it's something that we're going to have to keep educating people on. But I'm hoping that this campaign is going to keep becoming more and more far-reaching, so that we don't have to start from the ground level every time.
Nicole, I love the approach about education and helping people understand, because that's, knowledge is power. There's a reason you say that. Once you understand what's going on, there's no reason to be afraid of it. And you also will erase any chance of bullying taking place. I need to ask this question, and I don't mean to be disrespectful by asking it, but what about to the people who say, well, why didn't you just put a wig on her? She's a kid. She doesn't need to go through that.
She actually has some wigs. We did not get her any until she asked for one, and then we did get her one. I wanted her to, at her core, love herself for how she was made and what she looked like. And I didn't want the opportunity. I felt like it was more protective of me to not give her one than it would have been for her to have one, because I felt scared that somebody could take it off her head and expose her. And if she just went in as who she was, nobody could expose her because she had nothing to hide. So I really wanted to encourage her to just be who she was. There are like maybe 3 days a year now where she will ask us to wear one. She takes it off halfway through the day. She doesn't feel comfortable in them. They're itchy, and she's a kid, and she just wants to run and play.
Right. What are those times she would ask to wear one?
Sometimes like the first day of school, or if we're going to like a very unfamiliar place and she doesn't know anyone, she'll sometimes put it on, but within 2 hours she takes it off.
Right.
So yeah, I will be happy if she wants 10 wigs, I will buy her 10 wigs. If she never wants to wear one, she will never be asked to wear one, kind of thing. I want her to just love who she is.
How do you foster that within the family and her brothers and sisters? Do you talk about it quite a bit?
We don't really, it's not really a point of conversation because they were all babies at the same time. They don't know what she looked like without her hair. They don't remember it. They don't remember her losing it. This is just who their sister is. So it would be like discussing why Amy has freckles, or like, it's just nothing that has ever come up with them. That's all they know.
So I love how you continue to talk about honoring who you are and following that passion. Where does that come from? Because you live and breathe that.
I don't know.
You taught it as a young age. Was it from your mom and dad? It was like the seeds were planted. You're such a shining example with what you do in your own community and what you do in your store. So I'm wondering if there's any way that you can empower us and how, or people who are searching for that, to embrace that within themselves.
I feel like it was just really starting to learn who I was at the core and what I wanted to, the difference I wanted to make. And that I'm kind of an overachiever and I like being busy and it's never enough. I remember hearing somebody saying that she had a store, it was a houseware store, and she was never going to expand. She was super happy with just the one space and like that's all she wanted. And I remember thinking that would never be enough for me. It doesn't mean that I want more locations, but I want more growth. I want to reach more people. I want us to have more of an impact. And I feel like it's because I'm very competitive at the core and I am an overachiever.
You're competitive, but you're all about community as well.
Yeah.
And that's obvious in your store where you have that space. I was so blown away by it, where you can go sit and have coffee. Kids can play while moms are shopping.
Yeah.
Why was that important to honor that?
That was important for me because when I had 3 babies under 2.5, it was impossible to shop. It was a nightmare to bring them anywhere. I had a double stroller at best. Even though I wasn't nursing them, I was leaking. I was a mess, and I needed somewhere that women could feel safe. So we have women who come in, and sometimes they don't even shop. They just go to the hub and they sit. And these women can come in with their babies. All of our fitting rooms are big enough for a double stroller. They can go nurse in the hub. Their babies have somewhere to play. I needed it to be a place where moms felt that they could be safe.
Okay. So I'm going to go back to where I started and talked about that fashion show that you put on that night of your fundraiser. I was so humbled to watch what happened on stage and the way you talked, but all of the models that came out to showcase what you had in the store were either people who had alopecia or they're all customers of yours. Why did you choose to shine a spotlight on it that way? Is it all part of erasing the stigma?
Absolutely. It's one thing to talk about a cause. It's another one to put a face to it. So these are real women. These are real people going through this. And when you can actually put a face to it and people have to stop what they're doing to honor these women and to hear about their story, we hardly talked about, we sometimes would mention she's had alopecia since she was X age kind of thing. But we talked about the fact that they were moms, that they were doctors, that these were contributing members of our society who happened to just have no hair. And I think that when you put a face to it, then people can really relate and get behind the cause, and it's important.
I want to focus a bit on your entrepreneurial journey because there's so many times that you could have just said, I'm done, because you know how the saying goes, when it's easy, it's hard. When it's hard, it's really freaking hard.
Yes.
And I know that. And I say it a lot because I'm an entrepreneur and I'm like, wow, this is nuts. Why didn't, when every bank kept saying no to you, you just didn't throw up your hands and give up?
I just felt like I had something to prove. I just knew that this was going to be something and I had to prove it. And I just never gave up on it. I just knew that Sweet Jolie was going to be something. And I always tell people not to compare your 1 year to someone's 5 year to someone's 10 year. There was a lot of crap that went into getting me to 9 years, a lot, but there was so much more good than there was bad. And it just makes me so much more excited to see where we're going to end up. And it does not come without hardship. It is a lot of work, and there's been a lot of really, really difficult times to get me here as well.
Can we talk just a little bit about that hardship? Because so many people think that they're embarrassed by their mistakes, but our mistakes are our greatest lessons.
Oh yeah. If the mistakes that got me here, I would not be here without them. Like, that's where I'm learning from. So there's been just mistakes in ordering. There's been mistakes in hiring. There's been people who have been the closest people in my life who have left. There's been people who you trust, but at the end of the day, they're in it for a different reason. Like, they have an ulterior motive. It's just a lot. There's been a lot. There's been financial hardships, tons of them along the way, tons.
Like years of losing money?
Not losing money, but just being short, like not knowing how I'm going to make month end, and kind of having to beg and plead, and having this village that believes in me so much that they don't even bat an eye if I need help or if I need to go to them for advice, and just like getting processes in place and the stuff that I'm not good at, and just understanding that I'm really good at what I'm good at. And now we need to keep hiring people who are better than me at so many other things.
And all of a sudden, what about the train of thought that sometimes you only need to be 60% there to be ready? Were you 100% there when you opened that store?
I'm 100% there still, but I love it. It's one of the biggest honors of my life. I'm literally there 100%.
So you were ready, but many of the other practices weren't in place, is what I'm getting at. There's so many entrepreneurs that are afraid to take the plunge because they're like, I have to have every system in place, everything planned out before I will ever take the leap.
No, myself was 100% ready.
Yes.
The business, if you looked at the business model, absolutely, it was not anywhere near being ready. We are still putting processes in place at year 9, things that should have been done at year 2. But we were flying by the seat of our pants. We're growing so fast that there was no time to even sit down and put them in place. So you do what you do until you know better, and then you do better.
More advice to entrepreneurs. Do you see female entrepreneurs with a different focus or a different approach than male entrepreneurs? Can you offer some advice in that regard?
I feel like women entrepreneurs have to push a little bit harder at the beginning because it is harder to be taken seriously, which I'm trying so hard to break that stigma.
Yeah.
But I feel like women multitask better, and we're better at just like emotionally helping our staff and being able to think with both sides of our brain. And yeah.
What is next for you? Like, your store is now full, right?
It is full.
Like, it is full with merchandise. And just tell me, how many square feet?
Oh, I think that we have almost 5,000 square feet between the warehouse and the front end.
Think of that. You've also received many awards along the way, you know, our city's top 40, under 40. When you get this recognition, what does that mean to you?
That recognition would not be happening if it wasn't for the team that I have that propels the business. It is not a me thing. It is a Sweet Jolie thing, and we are always just trying to honor the business and push Sweet Jolie forward. It is not a Nicole thing. So that is a testament to the team that I have around me, for sure.
And next, I kind of skipped over that. I asked it, skipped over it. I'm coming back to it. What are the goals?
Our goal is to keep growing online and in store, and to keep reaching people, and to keep doing bigger and bigger give backs. And eventually our goal is to help other women in business and to help them get their feet on the ground and start growing their businesses so that they can go to the banks and show that they have certain things in place. So that's what the heart of Sweet Jolie is absolutely collaboration over competition, and just helping these women so that they don't have to go through the crappy process that I had to go through to get my feet off the ground.
You know, I want to end by getting you to tell me more just about your sweet cake, because does she understand that the store is named after her?
Yes, she brags about it a lot.
I love it, but it's almost like it's at the heart of who she is. Even at a young, tender age of 9, it's like what she is all manifested in that store.
People will tell you she is magic. She is absolutely magic. She is so special, and the fact that she is my only child who had black hair and who now has no hair, and